Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of The Risk Matrix with myself, Dr. Logan Martin, and Mr. James Junkin. Hey, James.
Roll Tide. How about that Bama in the College World Series? Check it out. Bama is the only school in the country in both men and women's sports, in basketball, football, and baseball, girls softball included there, to make it to the national finals.
Isn't that something?
Roll
And
Tide,
we
baby.
could go into a whole NIL thing and the transfer portal, but we're not going to do that today. Um,
That's another podcast.
that's a whole nother podcast. I'm basically heartbroken for my girls at Alabama. They had such a good season. And, to go out
Yeah.
like that, it was heartbreaking, but it sure was a thrilling final with the two Texas schools. Kudos to the girls that won 2 years in a row. So
Texas.
let's jump right in, James. You have a rip from the headlines for us today, and it's right on the heels of the ASSP conference. It's ASSP related, and I did see this in the news. So bring us in with that.
Hey, yeah, this was some of the talk out at the conference at the PDC. It's a great time out in California. We'll have more to say about that and probably an upcoming episode. But look, this was something that was a lot of discussion. It's making waves in not only at ASSP, but in the construction world. The American Society of Safety Professionals has just revised rather, five major safety and health standards for construction and demolition work. So these are updates that are part of the A10 standards related to things like worker hoist, safety nets, emergency preparedness, drill shafts, and debris containment systems. So, you know, these are really the go-to guides that help that I don't know construction companies in that particular area utilize to shape how safety is handled on job sites. So, what's the focus? The focus on the change, it seems to be cutting down on the injuries, cutting down on the illnesses, and as we've talked about in the past, a huge focus on SIF, right? So, what was behind the changes? We've always been focused on getting workers home safe from hazardous jobs. It really comes down to addressing how the industry is evolving. Construction today looks a lot different than construction did 10 years ago, definitely more than 20 years ago. We got new technology, new tools, new ways of working. All that's in play, which we're going to talk a little bit about today in our episode. At the same time, there are also emerging safety challenges. So, bottom line is that these revisions are forward thinking. It's the society looking to make sure safety standards reflect what's actually happening on the job site right now. So, for those that you'd like to use consensus standards and recommended practices, go over and check out the new ANSI ASSP A10 standards.
Now, can they get those for free, James, or do they have to pay for those?
I think they're behind the paywall,
Okay, so
right?
ASSP has them behind the paywall on their website. So if you're interested in
I
those,
think so.
the other question I
Members
have
get
for
a
you,
discount.
James, say it again.
Members get a discount.
Members get a discount. Um, the other question I have for you is I know that these standards are generated or updated with the help of ASSP members. If somebody's an ASSP member or they're going to become a member now to get the member discount on these things, how do they get involved in these standards committees? Because I know you sit on some. I'm
Several.
sure people are interested. How would they get involved?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Well, the best way is to go and do a little bit of research and find out who the chair of that committee is and reach out to the chair, express your interest in volunteering, see if there is an opening. It's not a limitless amount of opportunities there, but if you reach out to the chair, usually there are sometimes openings. People are rotating off other priorities in their life. Let you know that they're interested, and then the way the process works is your name's put forth in front of the committee, and they vote on you coming on board and participating with the standard. Um, they like to have a kind of an even base across representation. Don't want to have too many consultants. Don't have too many people from academia. Don't have too many people from the field. So, depending on how that lays out, that particular committee may or may not have an opening at that time, but that's the best way to do it. Find the chair and let them know you're interested.
Yeah, you can sometimes have too many consultants. I do know this. So, thank you for that information, James. So, I have a topic I want to talk about today, and it's kind of piqued my interest if I want to talk about it, and it's related to AI. Because I'm not a huge proponent of all this AI stuff that people are kind of shoving at us now in safety. Um, that's just me. Uh, I've yet to find somebody who can convince me otherwise because I feel like we're relying on it a little bit too much, to the detriment of number one, learning our craft and applying our craft, implementing things, and also relying on it to basically do our work, to do the thinking for us. And as we know, AI tools are not perfect, and they do make mistakes. In fact, I'm reminded anytime I do use the AI, at the bottom it says AI makes mistakes, please check this, right? So, anyways, the topic I
Can
want to
can I
talk
throw
about is,
something in there?
yeah, sure.
Before we get to the topic around AI, because this came up yesterday, sort of top of mind. Um, I think it was Elon Musk said that what AI has done is make smarter people smarter and lazier people lazier, right?
100%. Uh, that
100%.
I
100%.
mean, I don't agree with a whole lot of big tech and all that, but I actually believe that's true, right? Um, it's you don't know what you don't know, and if you start out not knowing, it's real hard to come up to speed with something that can basically outstrip you quickly.
And I,
So,
I have something else along with AI before we jump into your topic because it's pertinent to what we're going to be talking about, I think. Hot off the presses, I have a good friend who is an attorney here in New Orleans. He works in what they call an e-discovery, electronic discovery firm, and he put out an article, and I'm going to reference his article in one that I plan to put out here in the coming days. That's a cautionary warning to all safety professionals, but especially those that are consultants that are working under attorney client privilege. Do not, do not, do not, do not upload privileged and confidential information that's protected under attorney client privilege to OpenAI. You will void the privilege. Okay. There's court cases after court cases that are working their way through the system right now where the privilege has been deemed to be broken. So if you have, give an example, if you have a investigation per se that you're doing that's under attorney client privilege and you take all of the investigative notes and the JHAs and run them through OpenAI to go through and look at, ways to improve or what industry best practices there are and gaps that were within the system. Guess what? You just the privilege is gone. So I would extend that beyond things that are protected by attorney client privilege to this. Anything that is confidential and proprietary to your company, be very cautious about uploading it to OpenAI because that's how the system learns. We're sharing information, we're sharing data, it takes that data back, and that's why it would violate the privilege, right? But beyond the privilege, it's anything that you have that's of a confidential proprietary nature, it will no longer be confidential and proprietary if you share it with the world.
yeah. Well, let me add something there because I do a lot of peer review article reviews for journals like Safety Science and Journal of Safety Research and some others. And they have a warning now, don't upload the file you're reviewing, the actual research, to AI and have them do your work for you, right? Because I think reviewers have been doing that instead of doing the work and actually reading and opining by themselves. And that creates a whole other set of things, right? Where safety professionals are sharing their research in confidentiality with the publication, hoping to be first to publish. And if it's getting out on AI first, AI learns, and they use that. AI can use that in somebody's search during the next thing, and all of a sudden your work is out there before you intended for it to be published, right? So
100%. I think that's great. That's great. Anything you want to keep confidential, do not upload to OpenAI. Now, it's kind of somebody pointed out we was having this discussion yesterday. I called it closed AI. That may not be the term, right? But he said that's an oxymoron, and he might be right. But enterprise AI does not share your information to the AI platform, and hence is not there on the global file sharing, if you will, information sharing ways that AI functions in an open AI standpoint. So you can have an enterprise AI that you use in your organization that allows you to retrieve information, but it does not publish your information, your confidential information
right, but you
to
have
the
to
to
understand
the
that there
AI.
are severe limits to, whatever you're calling closed AI or enterprise AI, right? You're not gonna have it do the things that OpenAI would do, but you're also not gonna break the privilege, right? So you're not gonna be able to review things against a huge database of JHAs or best practices or things of that nature. And, that's where I'm coming from, James, when I look at this to be skeptical about this stuff. I I just feel like it's exactly like you said, Elon said, right? Smarter people get smarter and lazier people get lazier. I won't use the D word. Dumber people get dumber. Well, I guess I will use the D word. But um, we have to be careful here how we use AI, in that we're not basically relying on it to the detriment of actually being good at what we do and being, diligent about what we do. So let's jump into the topic, James. That again, when it comes to AI, I'm not a huge proponent of it doing our work, but there are companies now, and just to introduce the topic, this is about the intersection of AI, the use of AI, and psychological safety in the workplace. Okay, two topics that we've talked about before, but this is the intersection, right? So I'm going to give you a scenario. Okay, and then we'll talk a little bit about like what the problems are here. Picture this. You're working an 8-hour shift on a fulfillment floor. You stretch just a little bit too far to grab a box, or maybe you bend from the waist instead of your knees to pick up a drop tool. Instantly, instantly, a device on your hip buzzes. On a dashboard 3 offices away, a little box around your digital avatar flashes bright red. Within minutes, your supervisor walks over. They aren't holding a first aid kit. They're holding a write-up for an ergonomic violation. Welcome to the modern workplace. So sounds crazy, right? But we are using this type of
Absolutely does.
technology. Yeah, we are using this type of technology in telematics, right? We have driver AI that's dinging people and giving driver violations and allowing people to be written up. But we're talking about real time monitoring of workers right now. The other example I'm going to give you is AI that I have it on good authority. Amazon uses, and I'll have to look to see what it's called, but it's basically monitoring for violations of forklifts leaving aisles or people walking in pedestrian ways, right? And it's flagging people, and it's showing their faces and their IDs to show who's making the violation. So, talk to me a little bit about what you think is the problem with these things, and should we be doing this?
Well, I think ultimately what's going to happen is the court is going to have to get involved and tell us where the line is, right? There is a fine line between exercising reasonable care and due diligence in enforcing your company's safety rules, which are all requirements and expectations of the Occupational Safety and Health Act or the OSH Act of 1970. That's OSHA's purpose, right? There's a fine line there between that and becoming so obtrusive that it's not helping workers operate safety, it's paralyzing your safety man. Like I can see a lot of ways that this could be used in a negative way. And I liken it to this. If we polled our audience and asked them how many people love traffic cameras, Okay, nobody likes
They
a
have them
traffic
now where
jam.
they're installed and they just give automatic tickets.
Yeah, they just send you a ticket in the mail, and the traffic camera never gets the nuance of what's going on, right? So yes, it's a good tool in that we're looking at violations of our safety policies, our procedures that maybe can help us coach better. But I also think that it's got a, a propensity for abuse here, where we start using it as a disciplinary function. You know, years ago, this is going back a long time ago. This is one of the pushbacks of behavior based safety. Okay, was I don't want anybody looking at me, chronicling me, writing down what I do wrong all day long, because they're going to use it against me. You know, it's the rat card system, if you will. And so, from my perspective, if you can use this tool in a manner to enhance your safety management system while not destroying your organizational culture to doing so, I think that'd be. But I don't think anybody wants to be monitored 24. I know James don't want to be monitored 24 hours a day. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let me give you an example. Like somebody's walking, somebody gets picked up in this pedestrian path, right? Um, and or they get picked up a little bit outside of a path where they're supposed to be. They step over the line into where the forklifts are, right? But the reality of the situation, right? Because we're going to talk about reality versus what the camera sees or what the AI picks up, is maybe they had to move something heavy, and in order to do it safely, they had to back up a little farther, or they had to, move up a little farther to get the box around something, right? And they get dinged because all the camera sees is a violation,
That's the
right?
problem with context. That's the problem in the entire today's society now. You go through social media, you see clips of interactions between people, and not all of them are positive all day long, but you don't know the context of what that was in. You don't know what happened 5 seconds before the camera got cut on or 5 seconds after the camera turned off. You have no context. And that's where I think there could be some potential for abuse. And I think there'll be tremendous amounts of litigation on this. Now, I'll also say this, because this is a very complex issue, right? You do not have an expectation to privacy at the job site, in my opinion.
So let me ask you this. It's a good question. Does a corporate paycheck grant you the ethical right to monitor and analyze a person's physical geometry while they work 40 hours a week, where
Well,
they are, where they
just
are?
because you can doesn't mean you should. We have surveillance cameras now, right? So, you go into, for example, the bank. There is not a spot in the bank that is not under surveillance at some point. But what are we using the information for? How are we using that information? I think that's probably the biggest argument from the ethics of using AI as an enforcement mechanism is what you're talking about in safety management system, right?
Yeah, it's either verbally, I mean, even if it's just a verbal warning, right? I know that when I go out and do site inspections in the field, right? Just me showing up strikes people, spikes their cortisol levels and makes anxiety, right? I can tell by the way they talk to me. And I'm not a punitive sort, but even if I mention, hey, we should probably do this different or whatever, people get nervous. Anxiety spikes cortisol spikes fatigue. I mean, it's like a slippery slope of that kind of like, how are we using it? Right? Do people know how we're using discipline? Um, you know, and discipline comes with responsibility. Okay. Um, are people using AI just to discipline employees? And is that something that OSHA would want us to do?
Well, I think OSHA would want us to discipline our employees for violations of safety hazards. So let me take the counter argument because I haven't really made up my mind yet where I stand on it. Telematics. You mentioned telematics earlier. Does telematics improve driving safety? Absolutely, it's improved driving safety, right? Because it's monitoring at risk behaviors. So, would a well tuned AI mechanism that helps identify at-risk behaviors, be helpful to your organization. In your favorite term, it just depends. I think really rolls out here. How are you using this? Are we nitpicking people, or are we really looking for behaviors that could result in serious injuries or fatalities? And how do we manage this within context? You know, and this is all assuming that the AI tool has been trained to not to give a bunch of false positives, right? Uh, I've heard that, and look, there have been a bunch of people bring this idea up. I had somebody the other day talking and say, "Wouldn't it be great if we had this camera that watched people work all day long, and then when they made an at-risk behavior, it would create a notification, then we could go down and correct it and
It
coach it."
exists. It
Yeah, that
exists.
sounds great until you're the one that the camera's watching all day long.
Yeah. So I did read an article related to this that some manufacturers are resolving that conflict by blurring uh, faces, right, and blinding the AI. However, they blind the AI to who the person was that had the violation, right? I can see
So
that that
what's the point then?
well, I mean, if you're not using it for discipline, let's go back to the somebody. It flags the person that backs up into a powered industrial truck lane because they have to move that box safely, and in order to do it, they need the extra room, right? Then the point there would be, you see that happen once or twice. The AI flags it. You look at the camera and you say, "Oh, look, we have to move that lane, or we can't store those boxes there," right?
Do I not to discipline workers for violations of my safety policies?
But it's out
In
of
particular,
context, right?
I mean, I think has context is part of is the entire part of taking a snippet in time. Why did the worker do what the worker did? Could it be used to improve processes? Absolutely. Could it be improved to identify where the safety management system is failing? Absolutely. Could it be improved to see if our defenses have the capacity to absorb blows to the system? 100%. I'm just very cautious about using it as a disciplinary, even though discipline is part of a functioning safety management system. OSHA, right, will tell you straight up front, and I agree with a attorney that we both know work with times. He says, "I hate the term unpreventable employee misconduct defense because the defense has nothing to do about the employee. It has everything to do about the actions of the company." And he's right. It's really a really poorly worded phrase, right? So discipline is part of an effective safety management system. There are some red lines you cannot cross that can lead to termination. I cannot show up to work intoxicated and not fit for duty and expect not to receive some form of discipline.
Mhm.
I just can't, right? Uh, but I think the biggest argument about this is what James thinks, what Dr. Martin thinks, may not be the same as what the employee thinks, may not be the same position the company thinks, and the court's gonna have to tell us what they think at some point.
And I agree with that, right? But to your question, what's the point of having the cameras if you blur the faces? I mean, I think the point of the cameras is if you I think it's a slippery slope using them for discipline, right? I think if the AI can be trained to look at levels or tiers of things, right, for review by the safety person. Now, here this goes back to my pet peeve, right? Using AI as the ultimate authority on things and just using it to do my job, then I think we have a problem. But if I use it as a tool to get me the data, not look at the data, have me look at the data, get me the data I need to review in order to make decisions on whether or not to discipline or whether or not to change my safety management system or to change markings on the floor or to change where I store things or how I'm asking employees to do work, then that's a whole different ballgame, right? And I think maybe what we need to do is look at how telematics was implemented over the
Yeah,
last 10 years or so and see what research they've done
I
over
agree with that.
discipline, because I know that some companies are using it for discipline, but a hard break is not always a hard break because of the guy just likes to hard break. Sometimes it's a
That's
hard
right.
break because somebody around you does something crazy, right? So we probably solved that with more cameras in the cab, right? More data on the telematics recorder. Um, you know, we review the totality, or maybe they have the telematics systems are reviewing the totality of, yes, that was a hard break, right? But he wasn't speeding, or she wasn't speeding. There was adequate distance between whatever, but a deer ran out of the woods, and there's no way we could have, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe telematics has improved that much that we're putting so much data in there that it can discern, or at least get us to a point where we can review and make a good decision.
I think part of it, we have to ask ourselves this question. What problem are we trying to solve? Okay. Because AI is like this new toy everybody wants to play with, right? And
I would say everybody wants
everybody,
it
well,
to do their work. They
you
want to
know,
play with it, but they want it to do their
they
work.
want to play with it, and most of us don't know how to do it very well. At least I don't. Right? I'm definitely not an expert on AI. I use AI tools almost every day, but not to the capacity that you're talking about. Right? So I think you start off with the question: what problem are we trying to solve? If we're trying to get some data to look at, can we build a predictive model, not to the individual worker, but where's our risk level truly, right? I could see some use in that. I just think you're going to have a hard sale, particularly in some environments with continuous observation of
It's gonna
workers.
just listen. I would like to know some of the I'm always the research person, right? I'd like to know some of the research behind how those employees feel that are being monitoring it in such a way, and what kind of policies people have put around this to assure employees that they're using the data in a really educated, fair way, right? Are we using the
Now,
data to put a warning rail in a blind corner? Are we using the data to, make sure that we're having an issue all the time in a certain area and we're going to fix it? And and the policy only allows the use of those types of things, then I think you might be able to save your trust, save your psychological safety. If you use it willy-nilly and there's no guardrails around how a manager can use it, then everybody's either going to use it differently or it's going to be misused. That's my
well, and then look on the company side, okay? Could this data be used against you? How long are you going to store the data? Does this data now indicate that you're not exercising reasonable care? Does this data indicate now become a discoverable by OSHA to demonstrate willfulness? You know, that there's just a lot of
that's a great point.
legal and ethical considerations that need to be addressed before we start talking about surveillance of workers in that type of manner. Right now, I'm not against things that, and that, look, there are sensors now that help, if you want to call it, surveil workers, that are reminders. Like, it'd be great for the AI to, maybe like in your particular scenario, alerts the worker to improper ergonomic technique. Okay, informing the worker they need to do something better is one thing. Sending that to the CEO, HR, 14 different supervisors, somebody runs down there and says, "Hey, you didn't bend at your knees, not at your waist." I know from James, I would not appreciate that. I would not say that that is something that you have done to improve my safety and welfare. And it's going to cause problems for me from a mental standpoint, right? I'm gonna feel like you're always observing me, you're always looking for me, and I'm going to go find a place to work where
They're
we
gonna
feel
avoid.
like that we're together, right?
They're
Like,
gonna
I know some
avoid.
people just say, I'm not working in a company like that. Now, when we talked earlier and used the example of the bank, what is the bank surveilling for? Honesty, right? Security. Those are different types of surveillance. And going into that, that people are recording you in the transactions you make. You're dealing with cash. Certain high risk industries where you're using that as security and maybe even safety precaution. But when we're down here looking to see, did we bend at the knees, not at the waist?
Well, let
I
let
don't know.
let me say about the bank. How would you feel at the bank if the bank had your phone number on file, right? Which they do, and you're in the bank, and the bank's automated security system sends you a message says, "Take your hands out of your pockets and take your hat off."
I'd change bank.
Okay, right?
See, that's just a little too much, you know? And I think it's a cultural thing. When you head out of the US, you get into certain in the EU, certain aspects of life are just naturally, facial recognition. That's a thing that a lot of countries use. In the US, they're, you know, they're doing it, but they don't want to tell you they're doing it a lot. I don't go down a conspiracy um, track here and tinfoil hat and all that, but Americans generally, if you don't like traffic cameras, you're really not going to like something that comes and surveils every second of your day. And it's not just recording it, there's an action. See, I don't mind you watching what I do, right? It's this action all of a sudden now, I feel like I'm in trouble. You're coming
Every
down the
single
coast
time you make a misstep, right? Which
every time I make a misstep, every time. And I'll tell you, in the union environment, there's going to be a huge fight in collective bargaining over that.
yeah. Well, I wonder, because I know this happens in New York City a lot of times on the bigger construction sites, and because New York City has some pretty stringent rules on construction and training, etc., right? They now have turnstiles that you have to go in, that you have to be badged to get in. It does facial recognition, and it actually pops up red or green. Do you have the right training, and are you who you say you are, right? So it in a sense, that AI is creeping in there. I mean, that's more of a database, facial recognition, like one time in, but then you add on other things like monitoring the worker for all these other potential missteps or potential, doing the job not.
And you somewhat consented to that. Like, I don't have a problem with that either. Site access, what are you using it for? Are you using this data, my facial recognition? You even have it on your phone now and you can get a facial recognition. You don't have to put in your password. Um, I was on uh, last week with well, it was a bank, to be honest with you. And credit card company, and they're like, we can do voice recognition. You want to sign up for voice recognition? I'm like, no, I don't want to sign up for voice
No,
recognition.
thank you.
But it's there, and maybe that's something that's convenient. But I have a choice to opt into that, right? Um, and I guess that could be a condition appointment for site access. They do the something similar at TSA. You go, you give them your ID, you give them your boarding pass. They take a quick picture of you, and then what does it say? It's not stored. So, what are you doing with the data? How are you keeping the data? I think that that's something that really has to be thought about and fleshed out about. Um, I'm hesitant to believe that 24-hour surveillance and instant notification of me not bending at my knees creates a safer workplace.
So let me
And
just put this out there, and I think this will blow you away. I found one article, right, that said in a warehouse setting, they had lowered slips, trips, and falls by 20% using this kind of technology, right? Um, but with that, they did a psychological safety survey, and employee anxiety and turnover went up 40%.
there you go.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess the final thing here is, you know, it may make your dashboard green, and it may make your safety statistics go up, help you document discipline, all those other things. But if you have no trust with your employees and your turnover is so high, right? What's is the benefit worth all that? Or can we be implementing our actual good old, you know, ability to do safety and implement safety um, with walkarounds,
Well,
with
I mean, what
real
problem are
time.
we trying to solve? What is the problem we're trying to solve? Is it moral, legal, and ethical? Right? What are we going to do with the data, and what's our communication strategy to explain this to the worker where they see benefit? Yeah, if you can't solve and answer all those questions, I would say be very, 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 very careful. And I think your idea of looking to the lessons of telematics is probably well based.
So that's where I'm going today after we get off this episode, James, is I'm going to Google Scholar and I'm going to start looking for uh, things. Maybe I can bring it up on our Rip from the Headlines next time and I can
That'd be
give you a
great.
follow
I'd
up.
love to see what the research is, but I'm not surprised that that incidents went down and employee satisfaction and anxiety and turnover went up.
My question would be, did they really go down because of the monitoring that we did, or did they go down because we're monitoring and people are hiding the ball?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Did they really go down? Were they there already and there was underreporting, which is more likely, I would say.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that was a good episode today, James. I think we can
Yeah, man.
probably flesh this out more. I'm pretty sure that we're gonna have our AI folks online telling us exactly how this can be used and wanting to come on the program. And we absolutely welcome anybody who wants to come on and tell us, what good can come of this. Because James and I think James, I don't want to include you, but I'm going to include you, and you can say no. I think we're skeptical. And, I think a skeptical eye is a good thing as we roll these things into our safety practice.
I'm
So,
cautious, but at the same time, we need to embrace technology when we can. But embracing that technology just for the sake of embracing the technology because it exists, it may not be the right thing for all hiring clients, all contractors, all companies, uh, and for every industry, right? I would like to have someone on to talk about the legal aspects of this from a human resources standpoint.
yeah.
You
Well,
know,
maybe you can bring on your lawyer that does the electronic data, that wrote the article. I think that'd be a really
great.
great
Tom
show.
O'Connor, outstanding. But look for that article is coming out. That's not really on point with what you've got, but I'll have it out in the next few days.
Great. All right. Do you want to take us out, James? Talk about our
Hey man,
sponsor?
what a great conversation. This is one that we can't solve here immediately. And I hate to quote you, although I do like to quote you, but it just depends, right? It
Right.
just depends. But
It
here's
just
what
depends.
doesn't just depend, and that is the repository of episodes that we have on the risk matrix going back now 4 seasons. 4 seasons. I was
We
going
are. We're
back
in season 4.
and really looking at some of our earlier podcast episodes and the topics. Hey, you may not want to listen to them all. We'd love for you to listen to them all, but we've got really good titles, really good descriptions, really outstanding guests that we had on in the past. I would encourage you, if you're a new listener to the Risk Matrix, or you've been with us for a while, go back, check out some of those earlier episodes and see if there's any type of topics that might be of interest to you. Thank you to every one of you who is a loyal listener of our podcast. We do this for you. Veriforce has been an outstanding sponsor of this podcast now for four
Thank you.
seasons. We cannot thank Veriforce enough and the team over there at Veriforce for their commitment not only to this podcast, but for getting workers home safe from a high hazard job. How can you help us? Like, share, comment. Look, we're out there on just about every podcasting platform there is. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Bear Force's YouTube channel. There are multiple ways for you to interact with us. So go in there, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Your mama wants you to listen to the Risk Matrix, and it wouldn't hurt our feelings either if you did.
That's
But
right.
thank you for your
That's right.
support. Until next time, y'all keep bringing those workers home safe. Roll
Roll
Tide
Tide.
out, baby.